From Bosstrack, it's Her HypeSquad, a show about amazing women who've made incredible strides as leaders in their industry. They're here to support you in your leadership growth, to encourage you and hype you up as part of your Hype Squad. Hello and welcome back to a new episode of Her Hype Squad with Bosstrack. I'm your host, Michelle Harris. This week I talk with Karen Holliday, COO of the domestic platform at Innovairre Communications, a worldwide leader in the fundraising industry. Karen and I talk about showing up and being real, earning respect, knowing your voice, and even cutting out sugar. We also dig into managing our fears as things change at work and controlling our reactions to things we can't control. And we have a very special call to action for Brene Brown at the end. So who is Karen Holliday? Karen is the Chief Operating Officer of the domestic platform at Innovairre Communications, a worldwide leader in the fundraising industry. With her dedication to leadership, Karen Holliday has made an impact in the lives and careers of many and has helped in the successes of a number of organizations. Karen has over 30 years of experience in the world of operations. Prior to her current role, she held senior positions at companies such as Fiserv, Hart Hanks, SourceLink, Discover Card, and Top and Merrill. She is known for her expertise in business as well as for having excellent people skills. She is currently serving as Program Advisor for Women in Leadership at Valparaiso University. She is an active member of the ONCON Senior Council and a public speaker. Because of her love for this country, Karen is a veteran and has served in the United States Armed Forces. She is equally passionate about volunteering to help others. You might find her helping to build homes for Habitat for Humanity or aiding in a food drive in her local community. Now, without any more delay, let's dig into my conversation with Karen Holliday. Hi, Karen. Thank you so much for joining us on Her Hype Squad with Bosstrack today. I am excited to get into our conversation. We are going to be talking about making changes or pivoting while also respecting your authentic self, and something that, especially in today's environment, is so applicable for so many people. So I'm looking forward to this conversation. I'd love for you to start by giving a little intro of yourself to the audience.
Sure. Hello. Glad to be here. Well, hi, I'm Karen Holliday. Currently I'm a COO at Innovairre. We're a nonprofit organization that our tagline is "We help people who help people." So we're, work with agencies that help people all across the country, actually, and internationally as well. So background about me is I am married. I have 3 children and 5 grandchildren. So I am very happy to be here and looking forward to the conversation.
Great. Thank you. Oh, that's great. I have 2 kids and one is about to get married. So
Awesome.
looking forward to that stage of maybe eventually soon being a grandparent. So
it's the best job in the world. Trust me.
yeah, I've heard. So like I mentioned earlier, we're talking about pivoting while respecting your authentic self. So I was curious, I guess we'll kind of jump right into the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So in today's environment, there are a lot of changes required. And how do you stay authentic and true to your own voice and perspective, while also being willing to listen to others and make those changes or pivoting when necessary? In your role as COO, I'm sure you see that a lot with, operations. I am curious if you have any thoughts on that from your perspective.
Well, it's a great question. I think it's challenging for anyone really to, especially in this world and in any position really I don't think it's a challenge really to stay, honest, but I think it is a challenge to stay authentic. For women specifically, I think it's a challenge because in this world, we're always trying to see where we fit in. How do we fit in leadership? What should we be? How do we be? How do we act when we're in a certain room or we're in an environment? How do we maintain our leadership authenticity while we're trying to lead specific roles? And for me, my authenticity was always important, right? Even in growing up, right? I grew up with 3 older brothers. So it was hard for me. Authenticity was so important. I had to be an individual. And so I wanted to maintain, I was always of the opinion that you could be an individual and you could still be a woman, you could still do everything that you want to do, even if you were in a boys' world, right? So I was that kid that, the girl that tried out for the baseball team, even though they weren't accepting. I was in the military, I was a mechanic. So I always wanted to be that woman that broke the barrier, that, said, hey, I can do this. And still maintain being feminine and strong. And I think that's really important, to be authentic. So I didn't want to change me. And so in every conversation that I have with people, especially other women, when they ask me, how do you gain respect from other men or other people, or just even audiences of employees, anyone, I just say, just be who you are. Number one, be true to you. And secondly, make sure that what you say is your truth, right? If you know your subject well, you can speak to it authentically and in your own way, regardless of what you wear, of how you look, and you'll be fine.
Mm-hmm.
I never needed to change myself in any room to gain respect, because I treated everyone with the same level of respect that I wanted for myself. And I always understood that I just needed to know my subject, and I needed to be me in that room. And so every room I walked into, I understood 100% that as long as I knew my subject and I knew that I could be me, that I could win the room. Mm-hmm. And maybe I was naive, but when I walked in, I was going to win the room with that in mind, right? So it was maybe fearless, but that's how I felt.
Yeah, I agree. I had the same approach as I was coming up as a leader. It's like, I guess for me, I just didn't know how to be anything different than who I was. And in my mind, it was always like, I'm spending so much time here at the office with these people. Like, why would I spend that time trying to be like somebody that I'm not? So I was always the one like kind of trying to lighten the mood or add some humor, and I will always say, and it probably comes across in this podcast as well, sometimes, very awkward. And to me, I never felt bad about that. I would, you understand who you are, but to your point, it goes back to, you need to know what you're talking about and know the subject, know the topic, and that really gains the respect. And I like to say too, that if you are not authentic to who you are, it's hard to build trust with the people around you, because as soon as you start acting in a different way that doesn't align with who you are, people can see that and feel that, and are it's just human nature. You start to feel uncomfortable and you don't trust that person as much.
I agree. I think people, and they know that when they can tell from your actions, if they don't match your words, that you're not authentic. So, you obviously your actions have to match what you say. But I think that's why I think knowing your subject and knowing that you can't make promises that you're not going to deliver, right? Mm-hmm. And so I never say anything that I can't deliver. I don't make promises I can't keep. And I'm truthful to me. And so if someone asks me to do something that I don't intend to do, or someone asks me to do something that's wrong, that's how I stay true to me. I won't do it. I would rather walk away than say something that puts my integrity at risk.
Yeah.
So I remain authentic in that.
Do you remember back, if you think about when you started out in your first leadership role, was it hard to do that? How did you work through that and not be concerned about the repercussions of that?
It was hard. It was, because what I wanted, I look back, and it's funny, we talk about this. I've talked about this recently with many people, how hungry you are when you're young, and you just want so much to get to the next level, and the next level, and the next level. And so you think, okay, what can I do to get to the next level? And I remember being very fearless. I just had this conversation the other day, and you do things that put everything at risk to do it. But the one thing I refused to put at risk was my integrity.
Mhm.
And so I was crazy fearless, but I refused when someone said, you have to do this, you have to lie for me. And there were times that I was asked to do things that I felt were outside of my integrity line. And so I would say, no, I'm not doing that. And, I've lost positions for it. I've lost other things as a result of it. And I just said, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm going to draw the line there. But I do feel that it is a tough line sometimes when someone says, well, you're not really saying this, you're saying this. And I think even today, I mean, it early in your career, later in your career, I think sometimes later in your career, it gets worse because you're at a level where you kind of have to, you're saying things on the better half of the company. But I think there is a way to always say the truth. This is what I tell people. The truth, that it's always the right, the truth is always right. There's a right time, a right place, and a right way to say the truth, always, to maintain your integrity. But never sacrifice it for someone else. Because at the end of the day, it's you that has to look in the mirror, right? It's you you're accountable to you. And if you can't do that, then, if you change yourself for someone else, if you change, then you're accountable. You're accountable to that. So, and people will see through that eventually.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. And it's really easy to think that they're feel the pressure that, well, what am I going to do if I don't agree? And they do say, well, this isn't working out. We need to let you go. I mean, I've been in this situation a couple of times myself where I've had to leave a company because I was asked to do something that I was not comfortable from an ethical standpoint doing. And it can be hard, but I felt very confident in my decision. And, that I found something else. Like it's a big decision to make.
It is.
Yeah.
And it's very tough. It's a very tough position. I think many people are put in. And they're tough times and tough decisions. And companies have reasons for doing things and people have reasons for doing things. And you just have to decide what's best for you and what decision you want to make.
Yeah. I don't want to get off track, but I wanted to go back to what you said about being a mechanic in the military. What was that experience like going into that as a female? And what were some of the, if you don't mind sharing,
No,
some of
that's
the
fine.
challenges you faced with that?
So again, growing up with three brothers, right? You can imagine that, life was kind of different for me. And so when I went in the military, I just picked being a mechanic. I thought, well, this will be good. And I wanted to be the best mechanic there was. So I excelled in class and did my thing. And I actually was stationed in Hawaii. So that wasn't a bad deal. I got stationed in Schofield Barracks, Hawaii. But it was challenging. I was the only woman in the motor pool. And I got made fun of on a daily basis. There was a lot of people didn't feel that there was a good place for me there. So there was not a whole lot of respect, but I had to earn it, right? So I worked my way to earn respect. I made a lot of mistakes. I'm not gonna lie. I made a lot of mistakes along the way, and in doing so and gaining that respect. But ultimately, I did, and that was good for me. It was a good lesson, good lessons learned there, and being in a group of men like that, learning how to work with them, learning how to partner with them, learning the ins and outs of how a group of even in the military. I mean, you're with a lot of people that we all have to work together. I mean, how great was the dynamic there? I mean, people from all over the country are together and we have to work together. We're forced to work together. It's not like work where you're coming together, you have an employment bond. But in the military, you have to work together. You are put in these tasks together. And we made it work. And at the end of the day, we became friends and it was good. So I would say in terms of that, it was probably one of the best and most challenging opportunities I had.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so interesting. I think people think of the military and they think being a leader is easier because in that environment, people have to follow you or have to do what you say. But I've spoken to so many military leaders, and it's really not the case. I mean, there are so many ways to kind of rebel against leadership, and it ends up the stories end up being the same as being in corporate leadership. The challenges are the same, and having to build the trust and the respect are all the same.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
My military experience coming out of that and going into the corporate world was really beneficial for me because I still use it today. I still follow the same sort of code, which is very structured and using the chain of command. I still have that same sort of mentality as as I've grown up in the industry. I still look at things the same way. Would people go to battle with me? Would I go to battle with this person? How can we gather as a team? How can we grow together? And so it was a short tenure, but I feel those 4 years were so impactful in terms of organization, culture, building teams, and growing as a leader myself. So it was good.
Mhm. Great.
Good.
And you did mention a little earlier, if I can circle back to it, when we were talking about maintaining your integrity. Can you maybe talk about the detail or like the specific example of where you had to overcome or manage fear?
So when you're talking about fear, was you talking about an integrity decision, or are you talking about just making a change with a person? Like any.
Um, I guess maybe let's, instead of going back to integrity, but maybe talk about like making just like any kind of change in your career.
So I have a couple of different examples. One specific example in my career that was really impactful was there was a lot of change in my career. My 30 plus years, try not to date myself here, but 30 plus years of my career, I've had a lot of change. And most of that change, I would say the majority of that change was managed by me. I love change. I'm exhilarated by it. I absolutely love it. And so, I set my career from the very beginning. These are the things that I wanted to do. And a lot of my goals were, 3 and 5 year goals. Okay, by this time, I'm going to do this and this and this. And so, but there was this one goal that I set and I made it. It was awesome. It was amazing. And I set this goal at this one company where I was going to run the company. And so I started out in this position and I got promoted to this position and up and up and up, and I made it. Good job, right? So check, I made it. Well, I had this amazing boss, and I just loved him as a boss. He was just one of my favorite of all the people I'd worked with. And so, I'm in the position. He finally promoted me. I mean, after me just working at him and working. I mean, he had hired like 3 people before me. They didn't work out. He finally promoted me. I'm like, great. He finally gave me a chance. And so I'm sitting there, and one night I got the call, and I remember it. I can tell you visually, if I close my eyes, I can tell you exactly where I was when I got the call that the board was going to remove him.
Hmm.
And it was the only time in my entire career I ever cried over my boss leaving, because I'd been with the company 10 years, longest time I'd ever been with a company. I really, really was happy. I had put my roots down. This was my place, to the extent where I felt like this was my family. Like I knew this place. This was it. And so I knew my whole world was going to turn upside down when they removed him. I just knew it. And it wasn't like I was scared. It was just, you knew change was coming. Now I was exhilarated by change, but remember, most of my change was driven by me. So this change was different because it was coming from another source, an unknown source. And I was fine with unknown sources, but I was controlling those unknown sources. I was like, I'm doing this all by myself. And so now this change was coming from a different source. And so I was like, okay, okay, I can do this. I can do this. So I'm like, I'm ready for this. I'm ready for this challenge. So I knew, being in the seat that I was in, when a new person takes over a company, they usually want their people.
Mm-hmm.
And I was ready to accept that. But I felt like I could win him over. I could do this. Everything was going to be fine. But it wasn't. And so after about, I don't know, 3 or 4 months, he sat me down and said, we're going to make a change.
Mm-hmm.
And so for the first time in my career, it wasn't me. And I had to exit the business, and I was devastated. And I knew all the reasons weren't really about me, but it still felt really bad. And so I had to make a lot of changes. I mean, I pulled up my bootstraps and I moved on, and I went right to work at another company. But the impact of that to me was really significant. And so that change, it resonated with me for a couple of years. It really did. It messed with me. It was kind of like, how can I get over this? And I remember thinking it took a minute for me to really step back, take some stock in how I handled that, and then come back and go, I could have handled that differently. And these are the things that I did differently going forward. And I think in all my situations, everything that I do, I always step back, take a minute and say, I could have done this differently. I could have handled this differently. And not that I handled it wrong, because I was very professional, but I think if I would have, at the minute that I met him, if I would have done these things, it might not have changed anything, but I would have maybe changed the trajectory of what happened. I don't know. But either way, I took accountability in my part in it, and I felt better. I sort of forgave myself, forgave the situation, and moved on and became a, better me. That's how I always strive to be, a better me.
Yeah, I think that, thank you for sharing that. I feel like that's so applicable to today, where in today's business environment, there are so many layoffs happening right now. And so many people are probably going through the same emotions or feelings, like what could I have maybe done differently? Is there anything that you would advise that based on your experience, like any advice you would give them to maybe think through that process, to not feel like it's about them, like how you got through that?
I think if I had to go through it again, I hope I don't ever have to go through it again, but if I had to go through it again, I think the best thing that helped me was really stepping back and again, taking stock in the situation,
Mm-hmm.
and understanding that we all, regardless of what happens to us, sometimes this is so important, and it is important in everything. Regardless of what happens to us, sometimes we don't have control of it, but we do have control of our reaction to it.
Mm-hmm.
And if we can't control that, we can't control us. And so we have the power to control our reactions. And so, that can set off a motion of positive reaction or a negative reaction. And so I always take stock in what I have, what power I have in it. So for example, someone comes to me and says, hey, Karen, today is your last day. I can have a reaction that's explosive, and I can sit and dwell on it, or I can have a reaction that is, okay, where do I go from here?
Mm-hmm.
I have to get up tomorrow and I have to do something, right? So what do I do? So, and I can also be angry at the company, but the truth is there are a lot of companies that are in the same situation. And so I know that it's hard to have those answers. I've had to make those decisions myself for people, and obviously I've been in that situation. So I think the only advice I would give to anyone, if this happens, is take stock in your part and how you got there. And if it just happens and there is no part in what happened, obviously, then understand that companies make decisions for reasons. Sometimes you don't understand them, and your reaction to it is important to your next phase of where you go. And the more positive you can be, the better off you're going to be.
Yeah.
It is hard. It's very hard to wrap your head around why companies make decisions, but they have to make decisions and we all have to move on. So,
Yeah, it is hard because especially when there's a culture and you have not, I hate to say family because everybody is like, stop calling it family.
I
But
know.
when you've worked with some people in a company and you've given them your all and they have to make a decision, it's not about you at all. And it's hard to really keep in mind that you're working for a business and it's all about the bottom line. I mean, yes, they want to make it a culture. You want to provide an environment that works for you, but at the same time, they have stakeholders that they're accountable to. And that's always, I mean, unfortunately going to be the top priority.
Yeah. And you're right. I mean, it is, culturally, I think, and somebody said this to me the other day, culture, they said people sometimes believe that culture is this big cloud that raises, floats around over everybody. There's some big responsibility for it, when really culture is about us as a people. And it really starts with one person. And it's not necessarily the top person, it's really just us. And we are responsible to smile at each other. We're responsible to be respectful for each other. We're responsible to share that joy with each other. And so we have to be reminded that, one person can really change a culture just by spreading that joy with each other and every day. Or one person can be negative and spread that same sort of negativity. And culture is more about having a gift card or having a vacation day. It's really about how you feel every day when you come to work. And so I think I do say it's a family. It's kind of a family oriented type of thing. When you go to work, you spend more time there than you do at home.
Yeah.
And I think you should feel good while you're there. I mean, you do have to work, but you should feel good while you're there. But we do recognize it is work, and companies do make decisions. And if we don't make decisions, then people don't have work, right? I mean, that would be terrible, right? So it is tough. It's a tough decisions that companies have to make.
Yeah. Yeah, I was curious if you have any thoughts based on maybe some of your other experiences. So I've talked to women who are in high growth companies, organizations, or maybe private equity backed or venture capital backed companies. And when they are growing and they start getting additional funding, it's like their new management comes in and there is always that fear, like that constant, new management. Where do I fit in? How am I going to be perceived? Am I safe? And is there something you recommend to maybe increase visibility, or what approach should somebody take when they're in that environment of having to kind of prove themselves to new leadership?
Yeah, I would say, have a voice, know your voice, right? And no matter what position you're in, no matter whether you're female or male, you have to know your voice and know when to use it. And it's a lot of times I think exposure is so important. And saying the things that when new management comes in, what they're looking for is opportunity. They're looking for what's new, what's available. How are we going to change the culture? How are we going to change the dynamic of this company? What's good here? What am I looking for? Right? That's good. That's what I was getting at. And so when companies come in, I always think to myself, okay, how can I be seen? Because, I'm not just sitting at a table and I'm not going to be seen unless I say something. But I'm also not a fan of talking just to talk. That is really, I'm really not a fan of that. So I think if you're just going to say something, it should be impactful. So knowing your voice, but also knowing what to say and when to say it is important to me. I've been around many tables where there's just a lot of talking, but nothing is being said. And I think that is not productive. So I think if you're going to say something, make sure that it is with intent and that there is something behind it. And sometimes there's that, I've read articles about the quietest person in the room sometimes has the most to say. And I'm a fan of that person. I always watch for the quietest person in the room. And then I say, what do you think? And so sometimes they'll say something because they feel intimidated not to speak. And I think feeling intimidated is sometimes where we fall. And so I always look for the quietest person in the room.
Yeah. I think that's such a great aspect of leadership is when you do take stock of the room and recognize and get those voices to come forward, because you're losing out on a lot of great information or perspectives if you're not opening up the conversation for everybody.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, so one of the things, I mean, in the environment now, there are so many buzzwords like quiet quitting, unconscious emotions, loud quitting, bare minimum Mondays, the great resignation. Like, you being a COO, are you seeing any impact to your organization or others around you on these different things that I wouldn't say, I feel like they're not, some of it's a little bit new, but a lot of it's just putting words to things that have always happened. Like, is there anything is there a way that you've been impacted in your operations?
I think everyone's been impacted. Buzzword, I'm not a huge fan of buzzwords, but I think society itself just grabs onto a buzzword and then all of a sudden changes it because we don't want to call it that anymore. So we're going to call it this because it's cooler than that word. And so I think in terms of, quiet quitting or the great resignation or, the great, whatever we want to call it, the next greatest word, I'm not a fan of that. But I do think that we as a society have changed. The children of today, our children, have changed. And what I mean by that is they're saying something. And whether it's a quiet movement or a loud movement, what they're telling us, our generation, is we don't want to do it like you did it. And so we're putting our foot down. And the pandemic was just an indicator or a check mark to us to say, you know what, we're home now and we like it. And we don't want to come back to work. And so it's kind of funny to me because it's like watching it, because I have 3 children in their 30s. Well, my daughter's not quite there yet, but they're close. And so, and they all have children of their own, and they want to be with their families. And so none of them, I have one that works from home, but the other 2 don't. But their preference is to not work in the manner that I worked. And I get that. They lived a life where obviously I worked too much, and they want to be home with their children. They learned from me. And so I can only imagine what the rest of the world is feeling. I know a lot of people my age, and they all did the same thing. And so they're telling us we want this life. And by the way, technology is allowing it, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, we're talking today, and you are where you are, and I'm here in Ohio, and we're talking, and this is amazing, right? We couldn't do this 30 years ago. Yeah. So we can work in technology. Technology is allowing us to do things we couldn't do before. And so why can't we do it? And so companies are structurally saying, I kind of agree with it, but on the flip side, are we as productive as we used to be? And it's a great debate. And I think we're all struggling with the great debate. And for me, in my company, there are positions, because I'm operations, there are positions that just don't make sense. And so I've said to those people, I'm sorry, guys, this just doesn't make sense. And quite frankly, you're just coming to work every day. And if you want a position that works from home or a hybrid position, then please, apply. But there are positions that we can do hybrid. And for those positions, we are doing a flexible work environment. And I think people are happy with that. I think they would much rather work from home all the time, but quite frankly, it's hybrid, and that's what we're doing. And so I think for companies that are kind of saying, no, we want you to come back to work when they can be hybrid, I think they're struggling with the great debate. And I think that's kind of where we're at. But for us, what we're doing is working, but I still think we still have people that are debating. I think we will for a long time.
So I have noticed a lot of companies, a lot of big companies are now saying, we need you to come back to the office. Like, is it the talk of productivity that is driving that, or are there other factors that you're seeing?
I think it's productivity. I think it's engagement. I
Hmm.
think the lack of engagement is driving a lot of it as well. So what we've realized over the years is that, over the last year, is that work, we feel that people work better when they're engaged. And I think there is a factor of disconnect. I prefer it because I'm old school.
Yeah.
So again, you're getting my perspective of it because of my age, but their perspective is, I'm perfectly engaged with you. We're engaging right now. But when let's say we're in a regular meeting, you're probably multitasking,
Hmm.
right? But when you come and you sit in a meeting with me in a room and we're being productive together, I can see that you're not multitasking. I can see that we're engaged at the product at hand and we're working on our project together. But when you're on a Zoom and you're on a Zoom and I've got 25 people on a Zoom, we're not engaged really, are we? And so
Hmm.
we're all saying the right things and then we're going and doing our own things. And quite frankly, you're distracted at home because you got laundry and the dog and the kids and all the other things. And so really it's about engagement. What we really want is to be engaged again. And I think companies are really moving towards that engagement more so than productivity. And I think the two are aligned, really, productivity, engagement.
Oh,
I feel the
that's,
same way. I
yeah.
miss the engagement.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, I work primarily from home and I miss that. I really enjoy when I'm on these calls and getting a chance to really share ideas and talk and engage in different meetings that I have. It's funny though that there are a lot of companies that have allowed, and I've seen it in the past companies I've worked for, where you go into a meeting and it's not my meeting, I'm not running it, but you can see other people, they have their laptops in and they're busy like answering emails and typing away. So
Yeah.
and that might not be the case for all environments, but engagement, I think, becomes an issue for some companies too, even in person. So
It
yeah,
is.
that'll be interesting to see how this all works out
Yeah.
and the fallout.
That's right. That's right.
So I'm curious, I know you've shared a lot of some of the challenges you faced. What would you say would be the biggest challenge you faced as a leader in your career so far?
Mm, that's a good one. I thought about that when you asked me that the last time we spoke, and I would say probably, if I were to pick one out of my whole career, I'm going to pick St. Louis. I was working in St. Louis, and I'm just going to pick this right out of the sky. And actually, it came out of the sky, so this is an interesting one. I started a job in St. Louis, and this was actually personal and professional at the same time as well. So I started a job in St. Louis in January of this particular year. And in May, I had happened to go home. I was living in an apartment at a time because I was in transition. And I got a call that a tornado had just hit our building.
Mm.
And all I could think of was, I need to get there. People are at risk. It was on second shift. And so I was like, so is everybody okay? And they're like, you need to come. And so I had these two little animals, two little dogs. So I was like, I can't leave them here. The weather's still too bad. So I threw them in the back of my car and off I go. So as I'm driving into the building, so spare my story here, but it's kind of funny. As I'm driving, I'm thinking, well, I see cars off the side of the road. I mean, trucks are literally hanging off of the bridge. I'm thinking to myself, I should not be out here. But all I could think of was the safety of these people. So I'm like driving, I'm getting to the facility, and it's just, I see the fire trucks, I see just devastation. Like there's almost
Mm.
nothing left of this building. And all I can think of was, oh my gosh, I hope everybody's okay. But oh my gosh, it's gone. Like I just got here, it's gone. And what are we going to do? And so my mind goes into this panic mode of, you know, what I go to the nth degree first, which is devastation, and then I have to come backwards, right? So the most challenging thing was, okay, we're in true devastation. People might be in there. So I run up to the fire truck. I go, give me a construction hat. I know where to go. I know where the people are. So I asked if I can go in. He's like, it's not safe in there. And so me and this other guy who was in charge of disaster recovery, we said, we know where we can look if there's bodies, because there were cars in the parking lot. We were sure there might be bodies in there. And so they gave us approval to go in. So we walked in, there was water up to our legs. I mean, we were just wading through there. Luckily, there was no people in there. And we came out, and I remember we were just both in tears. The people that had the cars actually showed up and said, hey, we just want to let you know we were okay. We said, thank goodness everybody's fine. And that whole night we're on calls with the company while the TV people were coming by. They wanted interviews, helicopters were flying over, everybody wanted to know what happened. And it was just a moment of just stepping back and saying, wow, I mean, first of all, nobody got hurt. Second, what are we going to do now? I've got 300 people that are displaced.
Mm-hmm.
What are we going to do? So the next day, the sun shined, and I could see the devastation. So we walked through the building, and it really led to a really good story, because after that, it was like the next day, it wasn't so bad. The next day was a little better. The next day was a little better. We ended up splitting into disaster sites. Everybody had to work together. The company did all the right things by the employees. 6 months later, we were on our feet and we were back and running. The personal side for me was scary, because I had just signed the day that literally almost the day that the tornado hit, I had signed a contract on a house. And so I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I just bought this house and I'm going to be here and there's not going to be a business. Then what am I going to do? So it was like all this stuff was going on in my head at the time. So I was thinking, what on earth is going to happen to me? And I'm going to be stuck here. And that's all I could think. I was like, oh, what's all this stuff is going on? It's like I have my own personal tornado with a professional tornado. But I at the time, I remember challenging the president. I never met him before. He flew in and I walked right up to him. I had this construction hat on. I never met him. I said, I'm Karen. And I said, first of all, I just want to know the truth. Are we going to rebuild? If we are, great. I'm in it 100%. I'll be here with you every day, no matter what happens. If we're not going to rebuild, I'll keep it confidential. I'll stay with you through the transition. I'll be with you till the very end. I'll transition all the employees out, do whatever you need to do. I just need to know, because I have this contract on my house. It's got a 7-day resend. And I just want to make sure that whatever happens, I don't buy this house for no reason. And he committed to me and everything was good. But it was probably one of aside of the prior challenge I just talked about of being let go, this was probably the most, I would say, the most scary, exciting challenge that I had ever had to do. But when I stepped back and looked at it, it was probably one of the biggest growth opportunities that I had, because I learned everything about the business from the ground up, because we rebuilt it. And so when I look back at it, I was like, I don't think anything better could have happened, because in like 3 months, I learned everything I could ever learn about the business. I bought every piece of equipment. I learned all the jobs. I met all the clients. I mean, all at once. It just happened all at once. I would have never done that if that wouldn't have happened. So it was actually a pretty cool event. It was scary, but it was a pretty cool event. So.
Yeah, I have to give you credit, because if you had just moved to that company and you got that call, and for you to jump right into it and put yourself at potential danger, and that's pretty amazing that did you have any hesitation at all, or you just?
No. I mean, I guess, and it's my, my family will tell you that if you ever met them, they would tell you that my first inclination in any situation that is stressful like that, my first inclination is to just jump in. And it's really, sometimes it's not good. Like my family's always like, Mom, stop. I was like, but I can't help myself. It's like, if someone is in danger, if an animal's in danger, I just instantly jump in, and I'm like, I don't even think about what the repercussions are. I'm just like, okay, someone's hurting. I need to jump in, and I just go. And I feel like an air of responsibility for that. It's just something I do.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. Is there someone you can think back to who was an important mentor in your life who made a difference in your career or your life?
Yes, there's actually two. Can I?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
Yes.
So the first mentor is my very first boss out of the military. And his name was Jeff. And I worked in the mailroom. I made $4 an hour. And he was the first guy that ever gave me a chance, which was amazing. And I remember getting hired by him, and he was just really good. I was pregnant at the time, and it was very challenging at that time to get hired when you were pregnant. And so no one else would hire me. It was really hard. And so I remember going in there and not saying I was pregnant. Now they might have known I was pregnant, but this was the first one I just didn't say I was pregnant.
Yeah.
Because I was being honest with everybody else, but I couldn't get hired. So I just didn't say it. I wore really big clothes. So anyway, so I got hired and I was working in the mailroom. I worked very hard, and Jeff saw something in me. And he mentored me. I mean, he promoted me, he mentored me. I mean, all the way down to an understanding that when I grew up, I didn't have someone to really teach me anything.
Mhm.
So I grew up with three older brothers. My father died when I was very young. My mom went to work, so she wasn't really available. So I didn't really have that sort of guidance. And so when I met Jeff, he taught me how to be a leader. He taught me how to be, when I would come to work and I would speak a certain way, he would say, that doesn't make sense. This is how you need to speak. If you want people to listen, this is how you speak. And he would invite me to meetings and he would say, this is how you need to dress. And I would fight him because I would say, no, I need to be an individual. And he said, you can still be an individual, but you can't come to work and speak this way and dress this way and get respect. This is how you maintain your individuality. And you can still be a leader and you can still do these things. But if you want respect, these are the things that you need to do. And so we had a great run, and he was brutally honest. He told me the things I needed to hear. He knew how to say it. And to this day, the best thing that I needed at the time. And when I left him, he said, it's like a bird leaving the nest. He was so proud of me. And I got promoted into another job, and he was so happy for me. And it was everything that I could have ever asked for. So I was really proud to be a part of his life. And I will forever appreciate what he did for me. And when I left, he bought me a dress. And he said, this is what, and I hated it. I thought it was so plain. And so like, I would never wear it, but I understood why he bought it. He said, this is the kind of stuff you should wear when you go to meetings and stuff. But I said, I really appreciate everything you've done for me. And I wore it a couple of times and I was like, you know what, he's right. This is, and he really launched my career for me, taught me how to be a better person. And the second person that I wanted to mention was a woman named Deb, who similarly in a second half of my career took me under her wing and taught me about management. And she rounded the rest of my edges. She was very supportive. She taught me about women in leadership, how to act, how to be strong in a situation where you needed to be strong, and how to get things through the system when you needed to. And she supported me in ways that I can't even describe. She was amazing and still my friend today. So loved her. So
yeah, I think that's so important and amazing stories. Thank you so much for sharing. And I wish everybody had mentors in their life that really took them under their wing and helped them along like you had. I think it's important to know, like when people talk about being authentic and being true to who you are, there is also your setting, like where you're at and how you kind of portray yourself in that new setting. So I think it's important to know that you can still be authentic to yourself while coming into an environment and being respectful and knowing that you have to build trust and how to use your strengths that you have, and maybe speak in a bit of a different way that resonates more with the people that you're leading. I think that is hard, like to try to figure out like where is that line between being authentic to yourself, but knowing that you need to come across in a certain way to be able to build that trust and lead your team. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think I always I always describe that as holding people at an arm's length. You can hug them, but you're hugging them sort of through a glass pane. And that was a hard transition for me because I loved people so much. I wanted to, because I was repaired. And again, I'm always a work in process, so I don't want to misconstrue this statement. When I grew up in the business, and when I tell you these people impacted my life, I'll tell you just a real quick story, and I'm sorry if I'm dragging it on. You certainly stop me. But one of the things that Jeff did for me, when he promoted me years and years and years ago, my first job, I was promoted to a supervisor, and he put me on salary at $6 an hour. That was I've been on salary since then. But I remember saying to him, because I was a single parent at the time, I had my two boys, and I sat in his office and I cried and said, I have to quit. And he said, why? And I said, I can't afford to live without overtime. I said, I would rather take my $4 and overtime than the $6 with salary. I can't pay the babysitter. I can't pay the rent. I can't pay any of this stuff. And it was almost, and he sat with me and he said, what do you need? What help do you need? And this was a man who said, I need you here at work, and I need your mind at work, and I need to know what you need. And he created these special projects for me so that I could help myself get out of the situation I was in so that I would get to the next phase. He said, I want you to understand how this is going to help you for the long run. Mm-hmm. And he goes, the salary is going to ultimately be good for you. Now, I didn't understand that being put on salary at $6 an hour. I just trusted him. And he helped me through that by giving me projects that I could make extra money on. And even though I worked so much, I understood that this was going to help me because I trusted him. And one Christmas, I cried because I couldn't afford Christmas for my boys. And he would tell me, because Christmas is a luxury and your boys are too little, they won't ever remember it. And so I want to tell you just this real quick story, what he did. So I closed the building down every night and I open it up every morning. And he said, are you okay? And I said, everything's fine. I'll close it down. I said, I'll see you next year, because he was taking the last 2 weeks off. And so I went around the building, I shut all the lights off, and I came back to my desk, and my desk was filled with presents. Oh. And all the presents were wrapped, and they all had my kids' names on it. Oh. And there was a note on it that said, and I always get really sentimental when I think about it. The note on it said, this is donated from a group of people who believe in you. Keep going.
Wow.
And so that was the most special Christmas I ever had, because this was from a group of people who believed in me. And when I put those presents under the tree, I had no idea what they were. And my kids just opened them up, and they were so little, and I just watched them open it. And I thought to myself, this is the greatest thing that ever happened to me. And the love that they gave me, I committed to myself that I would give back to other people. And so when I meet people like me who have the same conviction, who want to be better, who want to do something better with their life, I want to do that for them. That's how I stay authentic. So when I talk to people and I have that glass pane in front of me and I hug them with the same love that I was given at that same time. I say, we still have to do what we have to do, but if you need help, I want to try to help in some way, shape, or form. I want to say, listen, this is important. We need to fix things. So how are you going to help fix yourself? And then I'll meet you halfway. Let's work on this together, right? Let's try to help each other. Let's be better humans,
Yeah.
right? There's a lot of people out there that want something better for their life. And certainly we can't fix everybody, but if everybody partners with someone, right? Think of all the work we could do.
Mm-hmm. That's such a great lesson in leadership and caring about your people and knowing who they are. And I think circles back really well to where we started with that culture. And yeah. So you brought I have little tears in my eyes from that story. I thank you so much for sharing that with everybody. Wow. Yeah. So everybody listening, your leadership goals is to really understand and know your people and really support and help develop and grow those that want it and have that show you that potential.
Absolutely.
So we talked about looking out for wellness of our employees. Let's talk about wellness of ourselves, because as a leader, you can't really be an effective leader unless you're taking care of yourself. And I mean, it's so hard sometimes to be passionate about what you do at work and then make the time for yourself. But a lot of people get burned out. And so I like to ask people questions around things that might be able to help people, give them ideas on how they can support their wellness outside of work. So I'm curious if you have any daily or weekly routines that you rely on that kind of keep you grounded or keep your brain in the right place outside of work.
So last couple of years have been rough on me, but I will tell you that there are certain things that I never vary from. So I do exercise. I do, those things vary based on, because I travel so much. I've been 100% travel for like 2 years. So it has been difficult to do that as consistently as I'd like to. But the things I never vary from ever is vitamins. I've been avid, I'm a health nut in terms of what I eat. And even when I travel, I know that your body is like 90% what you eat, and the rest is really just what you do with your body. Is certainly, that is all helpful. But if you don't eat right and you don't get the appropriate sleep with the travel, that's a little difficult too. But my vitamins are my thing. I mean, I'm just absolutely 100% about vitamins. And then water. My water is my thing. I love water. I drink it all day long, and that's my thing. So I love my vitamins and I love my water. That's my two things. And I just eat healthy.
Yeah.
That's I think. I also, in 2006, I gave up sugar. And so I know back then it wasn't cool to give up sugar, but I read a book that said that your body doesn't need extra sugar. So I said, you know what, I'm going to try it. And I did. And man, I never went back. It was amazing. So I just don't really do sugar. So that's part of my health regimen. I don't do sugar.
That's great advice. And it is really hard to eat well when you're traveling. So
Yeah.
I can understand
Very much. Very much, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And about sugar, I'm not sure how long it took you, but I think once you decide to stop, it only takes a few days before your body stops craving it. So it's really getting through the couple of days, and usually I think.
Yeah. And I would say, I wasn't really, I'd like to say I didn't really do that much sugar, but when I stopped eating it, like deliberate sugar, because there's sugars and everything, right? People always ask me, well, how did you do it? Stuff like that. I have certain rules around it, but I don't eat deliberate sugar. Like I don't drink things with sugar in it. But obviously fruits have sugar in it. Certain things have sugar in it, but I don't eat candy or cake or cookies or things like that. There's no deliberate sugar. I don't add sugar to anything that has added sugar. I don't eat it, but it was definitely a life transition. And it was an amazing life transition for me health wise. It was a big deal.
Yeah. So would you say you kind of follow more like a whole foods approach, that it's more like real food? So if it has sugar in it and it's real food, then
yes. If I could do it every day, I would eat, salad and vegetables and fruit. That would be my meal every day. I would love it. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, it's one thing that I like bowls, but you start to add lettuce. I don't know, for some reason, I just don't like lettuce.
Yeah, it's not for everybody. People ask me,
Yeah.
how could you eat a salad every day since 2006? I go, I don't know. I just love it. It's like, if I don't get it after like 3 days, my body's like, where's my lettuce?
Yeah, we make salads here. So we do make salads. It's just when we make the salads, like my husband will not put lettuce in my bowl, but it'll be everything else. So
Right. Well, that's okay too. I mean, all the vegetables are good. So vegetables are awesome. I love them.
Is there a song that you go to regularly when you need a boost of energy or you need to like hype yourself up for something?
You're gonna laugh when I tell you this song. It's actually not a funny song, but there's a song that I feel, as a kid growing up, and I really wasn't a kid when I heard it, but I feel something so much when I hear this song that it makes me feel better. And that's the only way I can describe it. And it's the song Beautiful by Christina Aguilera.
Oh, yeah.
And she just recently redid the video, and it really that whenever I hear that song, I feel something about every woman or every person that's ever had to go through bullying or felt something, or somebody felt, because I've as a kid, I think we all have experienced some sort of said something cross to you. And when I hear that song, it always reminds me that no matter what you're going through, you are beautiful, no matter what people say. And it's not really about your external being, it's about who you are in here. And so sometimes when I have a rough day, or sometimes when I feel, down about what's going on around me, or even the world, because the world can be really ugly sometimes, I go, you know what, you are beautiful, no matter what happens or what people say, you are beautiful. And I have to, because I have a very sunshiny demeanor, and I really love to be sunshiny, and I want to maintain that for myself.
Yeah.
And so when you go out into darkness sometimes, and sometimes people, you just can't help yourself because what's going on, people feel bad. And so you want to be sunshiny. You have to remind yourself that you're beautiful. No matter what happens, you're just beautiful. And it doesn't matter what you look like or what people say about you, what color your hair is, or it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what size you are. It just doesn't matter. It's who you are as a person that makes you beautiful.
Yeah.
And that's why I love that song. My favorite song.
Well, thank you for being that sunshine. I know that I know the world definitely needs that. So
Yeah, I love sunshine.
is there something that you've bought in the last year or so that's under $100 that you would say has made a difference in your life that somebody might benefit from checking out?
The only thing that I have bought under $100 in the last year that benefited me is this water bottle, which is very funny, but I tell you, I take this thing everywhere. And if it wasn't for all these awesome stickers that my children and grandchildren made me put on it, it wouldn't have all this character. But they demand that I have character, and that makes me the sunshine person I am. So people are always like, do you really need all those stickers? I said, yes. When your children and your grandchildren say you need stickers, you put the stickers on your water bottle, and that is cool. And so I want to be cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
So nothing special about the water bottle. It's
Absolutely nothing. I just love it. I love it because I love ice water. And so I fill this thing up so many times a day, and it holds water. It holds the ice water forever. I mean, no matter how many, but I tell you, I could say that it holds ice for a long time, but I drink so many of them. It's like, but I can tell you, it's just an awesome brand. I don't even know what brand, the Taki, CAKEY. So it's very common brand, nothing very special about it, except that I love it. And so I don't really have anything very special to add there, except that's my favorite water bottle. And I probably have a few of them that I travel with. I throw them in my luggage, throw them in my bag, but this one is my favorite. I take it with me everywhere.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely special, I think, and especially with the
I
stickers.
think everyone should have a water bottle that they carry with them, whether they put stickers on it or not. They should have one that they carry. And I see a lot of people carrying water bottles, which is awesome. And so but that's mine. That's my favorite. So I think everyone should have one.
Yeah, I am kind of the same with I wish it was water all the time, but a lot of it's just decaffeinated tea, but or iced tea,
Yeah.
but I'm all constantly back and forth. Like that's basically I get my steps in for the day, going back and forth to the refrigerator to get more.
Yeah, I was thinking, I got my watch, but that wasn't $100. I've got it. No,
Yeah.
it's my water bottle. That's it.
No, that's awesome. Thank
Everything
you.
else is
Thank
too
you.
expensive.
Is there a good book that you've read recently that you, either fiction or nonfiction, that you feel would benefit or entertain somebody that you'd recommend?
So books. I love anything by Brene Brown. Anything. I mean,
Yeah.
absolutely anything, and I highly recommend it. I will tell you a little story about my adventure with books recently. When I was at my prior company, I decided I was tired of doing everything, all my other routines. So I said, you know what? I'm gonna get a treadmill because I just couldn't get outside enough. And so I said, I'm gonna throw this thing in my basement. I'm gonna get Audible and I'm gonna start listening to books. So I started out with a Brene Brown book, and it was Dare to Lead. And so I was like, oh my gosh, I love this book. So I threw in the pods, and what I found was that I wanted to get through the book and I wanted to get healthy at the same time. So I was getting back in my routine. And so what I really discovered through this process was that I was more interested in the book than the treadmill. So every day I committed to listening to another segment of the book while I was on the treadmill. So I was on the treadmill every day for an hour, and I was like, okay, I can't wait till the next segment of the book. So I went from one book to the next book to the next book. I was doing this. I mean, before I knew it, I had 50 books. I mean, it was like I was through all these books, and I was like, oh my gosh. And it was like listening to a motivational seminar every morning. And I was loving it. Every morning I was energized to get up every morning at 4 o'clock, which I still do. And I was listening to this motivational seminar, and I was going to work, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited. And I started this thing at work, and I was like, everybody, when I'm in a book club, and they're like, oh my gosh, Karen, I was like, you're so full of energy. And I loved it. But out of all those books, my absolute favorite book was Daring Greatly. I felt like I was living that book. I read it or listened to it twice. I laughed during it. I cried during it. I was like, I am part of that book. I love it. I highly recommend.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with Brene Brown.
No, I want to meet her. I want to be next to her. I want to talk to her. I want to have a conversation with her. That's what I want.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, great.
Awesome.
Yeah, she helped me. There was a time where I was traveling back and forth between North Carolina and DC driving. And I listened to at least 2 or 3 of her books on those drives. And she really helped me get through the hours.
I know, it's just, she's really good. Yeah, really good books.
Well, so Karen, I really appreciate your time with me today and sharing all of this passion that you have for leadership. And I'd love if you could, 2 things. One, if you have maybe some last parting advice to the audience to kind of hype them up as they move through their leadership careers. And also if listeners are able to reach out to you, like where would be the best place to find you?
Well, certainly, if anybody would like to reach me, I'll start there. You can reach me on LinkedIn. I'm certainly on Facebook. Those are 2 places you can reach me, or you can reach me on my email, holiday6772@gmail.com. I'm happy to connect with anyone who wants to chat or talk about anything and everything. I'm certainly available. And my parting words are to hype everybody up is leadership is an adventure to me. I love what I do, but most importantly, the reason I got into leadership was because I love the people, and the people make the difference. And for me, it's about how I impact them in this adventure. And they are, without them, we can't do anything. And so without you, we can't do anything. And we are all in this together. So we have to manage this crazy place together. And so we just have to figure it out. So I think in leadership, as you're managing people, as you're managing and maneuvering your boss, as you're managing and maneuvering your career, think about how authentic you want to be in managing the direction you want to go, plan that out and just figure out how you want to get there. And no matter what, don't sacrifice who you are for anyone, and you'll make it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Those are great words of wisdom. And I'm definitely going to follow up with you about your book club to get some recommendations to put on my list. So
Awesome. Well, it was great being here.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time, and again, all of this great information you've given to me and the audience. So it was great talking with you.
Thank you.
Okay, well, enjoy the rest of your day. All
Thank
right.
you. Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
Hi, everyone. This is Michelle again. Just one more thing before you take off. If you've enjoyed this podcast, consider joining our Patreon at patreon.com/Bosstrack, or sign up for our free weekly newsletter. It's easy to sign up and easy to cancel. Every Monday, we send out a short, exclusive newsletter of what we found during the week that we're excited about, we're inspired by, and we're watching and reading. If you'd like to check it out, just to go to thebosstrack.com/newsletter. Just type that into your browser, thebosstrack.com/newsletter. Drop in your email and you'll get the very next one. Thanks for listening.